Thank you all for attending today. My name is Ed Banks, founder of Get the Gist. Now let's get into some things. Hopefully you caught what I did there. Get the gist. Get into some things. Let's go. As Sapreet mentioned, the theme of today's TED Talk is Think Again. And as I look around the auditorium today, and I see this room full of bright minds, future leaders and innovators in the world, it makes me think about a simple question. What things should all students know before they graduate AISD and leave these four walls and make their way out into the real world? And when I think about this question, it becomes blatantly apparent to me that there exists a gaping hole in our curriculum that remains unaddressed. Some might ask themselves, what is the gaping hole that exists within our curriculum? Is this a matter of DEI and a failure to talk about it within our classrooms? Others might think that maybe this is a matter of critical race theory and the fact that we don't really discuss it too often. Is this an issue of mental health and having conversations about social emotional learning and things of this sort? But actually, if you ask me that, I'd say that no, this is not the case. And the school actually does a pretty good job. If you look at the sum total of our pastoral care, if you look at our advisory programs, I think that we actually do a pretty solid job. Although these subjects are not addressed overtly as a part of our curricula, I think that they are addressed within the framework of our educational experience. So this begs the question, what aren't we actually addressing on a regular but a much needed basis within our classroom? And that brings us back to this theme of thinking again. Because my contention is, you can't think again about something if you've not thought about it the first time around. So what's the thing that we've not talked about so far within our educational experience? And that'll be the topic of today's discussion, the most important subject that schools don't teach. And I'm gonna say the important subject that's not taught within our framework of education today is the topic of financial literacy, financial education. So in order to illustrate how ignorant the vast majority of students are with regards to personal finance, I'm actually going to start by asking you all just a few simple questions that we would expect that graduating seniors heading out to the real world, whether that's into the labor market or matriculating into college or university, should probably know. So I'll start with question number one. What figure is considered a good or a bad credit score? If you know the answer to this question, I'd like you to raise your hand. Looks like we got about 2 people in the crowd. 4. All right, let's keep going. I'll ask a second question. What are the 5 factors that determine your credit score? Raise your hand if you know the answer to this question. 3-ish? One final question. What percentage of your credit score is determined by each of these 5 factors? No hands. Interesting. In fact, we just did an impromptu survey, but if you raised your hand to any one of these questions, put your hands up again. So if you look around the room, what you'll notice is the vast majority of students in the classroom or in this performing arts center today don't know the answer to this question, but they probably should. But what's more concerning is, for those who raised their hand to this question, let's put those hands up again. If you learn the information in schools, keep your hands up. And if you learn this information anywhere besides school, from a family member, from a friend, or from your own curiosity, put your hands down. This is the problem. Most students don't know it, and if they do, it's probably the case that they learn this information outside of school. And this, for me, is incredibly troublesome. So, in order to convey why this is important, and we've talked a bit about credit here, I'll actually maybe explain what a credit score is, because I assume that maybe some people in the audience today don't have a firm grasp of what a credit score exactly is. So, your credit score is basically a metric that is used to determine the credit worthiness that you have, how eligible you are to a lender to make a loan, right? And the higher your credit score is, the more likely they are to lend to you, and the lower the interest rate that they will give you. And conversely, the lower your credit score is, the less likely they are to lend to you. And if they will lend to you, they will do so, but at a high interest rate. So the way that we manage our credit ultimately determines what credit lines are available to us and at what cost, right? So this is incredibly important because a good number of you all today, especially our juniors and seniors, will leave AISD really soon, and you will enter into a world where everyone around you is reliant upon or trying to sign you up for credit, whether that be in the form of student loans, whether that's in the form of credit cards, auto loans, and the like. But most of us have no knowledge or awareness about these factors that actually impact our credit. All right, so to convey the importance or the implication of not having access to this information, I thought I'd start by giving a personal anecdote and talking about my own credit journey. So let's start with doing that. Here's a picture of myself. Senior year photo, class of 1999. I graduated, and in the fall of that same year, I went to Illinois State University. And when I got there, my older brother was also in attendance. I had several good friends that were classmates that also had got accepted to Illinois State University. My college sweetheart was there as well, and there was somebody else that I didn't expect, credit card companies. And they were there by the dozens, and they were anxiously waiting to sign myself and every other freshman that had enrolled in university up for credit cards. Every time we went to a lecture hall to attend for a lesson or went to a residence hall or a dining hall to grab a bite to eat, there were vendors there with tables, with booths that were excited to sign us up for credit cards and give us these things that at the time we didn't fully understand. And they will offer us these really cool incentives that I really couldn't resist. And sometimes when they'd make these offers, I'd sign up for a credit card, for a t-shirt with a cool little slogan like this one. But this is not the BS that you all probably have in mind. This is a Bachelor of Science. I would sign up for dorm posters, but this isn't the Nirvana I had in mind. I was thinking more so about this one. I still happen to be a Nirvana fan, by the way, as you can see. Thanks, Kurt, Chris, and Dave. So I signed up for credit cards for posters, for cool swag t-shirts, and I kid you not, once I signed up for a packet of Twizzlers. I got a sweet tooth. What can I say? But what I didn't understand at that time when I signed up for these Twizzler credit cards was every application that I applied for actually stayed on my credit report for 2 years' time. Whether or not I was approved or rejected, every application stayed on my credit report. But no one taught me this in school. But more important than that, not only does it stay on your credit for 2 years, this metric determines 10% of your overall credit score. Had I known that, I don't think I would have been as anxious to sign up for Twizzler credit cards. But it gets better. I also didn't understand that the amount of time that you maintain a credit line also impacts your credit score. This accounts for 15% of your credit score. So now, when we look at these two metrics combined, you're looking at roughly 25% of your credit score just by the fact of applying for a card and how long you keep that card open once you're approved. Or let me not even say card, a line of credit. But this doesn't even take into account how you utilize your credit once you establish a line. So this brings us to the topic of utilization. I didn't understand anything about utilization, so I used my credit in a very irresponsible way. But this factor accounts for 30% of your overall credit score. Because I didn't understand utilization, I got my first credit card at the age of 18, a Discover card. $1,500 was the balance, and I maxed the credit card out probably as quickly as I got the card. I remember specifically, I bought myself a DVD changer. You laugh now, because things have changed quite a lot, right? I bought myself a few pairs of Air Jordan sneakers. Some things never change. And before I knew it, as quickly as I had gotten that $1,500 credit card, I had maxed it out. But now, If you all are anything like me, when you enter university, you'll probably be a brokey. You won't have much money saved, and $1,500 will probably feel like $15,000. So this is to say, once I maxed that credit card out, it took me lots of time to pay it off. It cost me lots of money in terms of interest, and most important of all, it cost me lots of peace of mind. And it actually cost me my faith and credit, right? I didn't understand what that thing was, so by the time I paid the balance off, I wanted nothing more to do with credit. I closed my credit card, ended that credit line, but bear in mind this, the length of time that you keep a line of credit open is 15% of your credit score. So when I closed that credit card, that actually brought my credit score down, unbeknownst to me. This is the implication of not having an awareness of financial literacy. This is the cost. So this made me start to think to myself, how is it possible that we can be a part of this educational experience and have education in physical education? If you're anything like me, maybe in middle school, 9th grade in high school, you'll get education in health and sex education, and maybe not so much in DACA, but when I was in high school, we even got driver's education, but no information about financial literacy or financial education. And to me, this is a horrible injustice because people will be waiting to prey on your ignorance, all right? I think about things like this. So I'll do another impromptu survey, and I'll show you something and ask you all to raise your hand if you recognize the formula. Raise your hand if you recognize what this is. A lot more response than the first when we asked the questions about credit. So for all of the hands, some brave soul shout out. What is this that we're looking at? I'm sorry? An equation of a line or a linear equation, yeah? So now, for those who raise their hand, the question is this. What do you use a linear equation for on a daily basis? Raise your hand if you know. 2 hands? Interesting. So now, I'll show you all another formula that you probably should know. This is a formula for APR, an annualized percentage rate, which basically tells you how much money you will pay in interest and fees when you borrow money. This is something that you'll likely use on an everyday basis, and how you utilize it will affect you either in positive or negative ways. The fact that you don't know it, the fact that you don't know how to calculate it, and the fact that you don't understand the implications of it, to me is terribly concerning. So most of us in the room know what the linear equation is, despite the fact we don't know how we utilize it. But something that we are expected to utilize on a daily basis is something we have no awareness of. This is the problem that's at hand today. So, when I start to think about this factor and everything that we've talked about so far, it makes me really start to think about the cost of our ignorance, right? I've grown up and I've often heard people make the statement that ignorance is bliss. I'm not a fan of this statement, and I'll explain to you exactly why. In fact, I'll do so through parable. I'd like to paint a picture for you all, so bear with me for a moment. Imagine all of you all as students today walking into AISD, you go into your class, and you sit down for the first day of class. When you sit in that class, your teacher gives you an examination. You've learned no information about the exam, but you take the exam, and as one would expect, you fail it. And in fact, you fail it miserably because no one's taught you about the subject matter. After you fail the exam, imagine if your instructor took that result and published it on your transcripts for colleges and universities to see as you applied for enrollment to college and university. How would you feel about that process? Not so good. My contention is this. This is effectively what's going to happen to the vast majority of you all if you have no exposure to concepts of financial literacy. You're going to enter into the real world where you're going to have no knowledge of the subject matter at hand. You're going to fail the test, which is the game of life, and then once you fail it, they're going to make that failure public by putting it on your credit score for creditors to see time and time again for years to come when you apply for loans, for credit cards, for auto loans, for mortgages, and the like. So I don't like this statement that ignorance is bliss. I would actually make the argument that ignorance is expensive. Ignorance will cost you time. Ignorance will cost you money. Ignorance will cost you peace of mind, and it will make you lose faith in credit and how it works if you don't understand how to be a responsible steward of it, right? They often tell us that experience is the best teacher. My argument is this. If you're learning about finance through experience, that means that you're probably failing the test and then getting the lesson after the fact. Sounds like a problem if you ask me. So I would argue that ignorance is expensive, ignorance is not bliss. So what can we do about it? And this is where this gets a bit passionate and personal for me. This is why I started my organization, Get the Gist. And Get the Gist stands for General Information Simple Tools, right? We want to help students get the general information and the simple tools about debt, about credit, about personal finance, about budgeting, savings, and investments. So we can go from this reality, where 1 in every 3 students have a required mandate to learn about financial education, to this reality, where every student has some exposure to concepts so that they could be responsible stewards of their finances. So I'd like to end today with a quote. And the quote goes as follows. An investment in knowledge pays the best interest. But I challenge you to think about this. If your knowledge is devoid of information about financial literacy, it won't pay you the best interest. It would actually cost you lots of interest. Thank you.